I feel like I've finally transcended contamination in sort of a weird way. And what I mean by transcended is that now I can finally kind of look back and I can say, oh, I remember when I was first getting into growing mushrooms. I remember how I used to feel about X. It used to like physically make me feel like just this is the best way I can describe it, where you're just kind of like clammed up all the time whenever you're doing anything. Just be imagining that there'd be contaminants like little molds and bacterias, you know, flying all over the room. I imagined little tiny little bugs, just like I'm actually sure they are, but I'd imagine them flying all over the room. And I imagine that as soon as I got into, you know, the monotub back there, or as soon as, you know, they got in touch with my precious mushrooms, the battery died. So I had to replace that. What was I talking about? I was talking about contamination. Oh yeah, and how I used to just imagine that there was little bugs flying everywhere. I remember watching a video about where a person, some scientist took some sort of a piece of testing equipment and held it in the air. They were demonstrating like laminar flow hoods and the difference between using a laminar flow hood and using a still air box. Both of which I've talked about in videos on this channel, by the way. I got a laminar flow hood after being paranoid by that video. So did I get off track? Yeah, I got off track. I was talking about the video that I watched that terrified me, where the guy was holding a piece of testing equipment that tested all of the different you know, particles and stuff, all the nasties flying around in the air. And, you know, spoiler alert, or long story short, basically in regular air, it's like some ridiculously high, you know, number. It's some shocking number that makes you go like, ah, when you hear it. And then in front of a laminar flow hood, it goes down to like 0 or something like that. And it proves the point that laminar flow hoods are good. And, you know, you need to be, you know, sterilizing and using all of the proper equipment and everything when you're working with mushrooms and stuff. And while all of that's true, you know, another one of those things that the mushroom has taught me is to chill out about all that kind of stuff, to relax. I'm letting go of the fear of contamination all the time. I'm being a little bit more relaxed. I just dug into that monotub down there, to be specific. I just dug into that thing without, you know, spraying my arms down with alcohol and putting gloves on and the whole 9 yards. And at the end of the day, I'm learning to basically just kind of chill out. And I'm looking back and I'm reflecting on how I just remember it used to make me feel, on how I used to just kind of get all clammed up and nervous and, you know, weird acting because of, you know, the fear that the idea of contamination was creating. I mostly just wanted to get on video me going, ugh. The other thing that I wanted to show you before I actually turned the camera off on this video, while we're talking about contamination, we had a little contamination theme yesterday. We might as well continue with a little contamination theme today. Plus, I'm curious to dig into this tub myself, but I've been wondering what that little ring in there is. These two tubs, so this was the king oyster tub that we looked at yesterday that was contaminated. I cleaned it all out, I sterilized it, I let it dry, and now it's sitting back in place waiting for a redo. This is a chestnut mushroom in here, and both of these were wood-loving mushrooms. So this is the first time I've actually done like a wood substrate with like wood chips and stuff, and I think the problem is that I basically just used way too much water and oversaturated the substrate. When I actually had pulled the filters off of these things when I was putting them into fruiting conditions, they were like sopping and soggy wet. And you can even see right now, kind of strangely enough, this filter's like falling off. I've also been having a little issue with the magnets kind of coming out of these my magnetic filter holders that I created. I redid the backing on these things and made it a little bit thicker, and I'm using like a rubber spray to hopefully waterproof and prevent these little magnets from falling out of those things. But that's one of the little issues. These are for sale on my Etsy shop, actually, by the way. And, you know, full disclosure, I've been having an issue with the older version of them. In really humid conditions, the magnet's kind of falling out. So if you have got one of these and you are dealing with the same issue, number one, you can just fix it with a little bit of super glue. But number two, I'm working on it, and hopefully
The newer versions that I've been using for the past few months have been, doing just fine. But we're gonna try and get a shot of me taking this out of here. I wanna see for myself actually what's going on in here, because I try to make it where I don't have to lift the lid at all until I'm actually going in to pull a mushroom out of these things. Because one of the ways, or at least one of the ways that I like to think about it is that, if you're not in there messing around touching stuff, ooh, yeah, I could never see how green it was from the outside of there. Can you see how green it is? Maybe if I get a little bit more light on it like that. Yeah, that's definitely, I think that's what's called trichoderma. And the reason I want to show you this is I think what's going on is that this mycelium has actually kind of blocked it and stopped it and won the battle. And to be honest with you, the fact that this mycelium is doing that, the whole idea is actually to build the mushroom up until it's strong enough to actually defend itself. But when we're first starting to grow the mushrooms, they're tiny little babies and they're weak and they're defenseless. So we got to get them to the point, just like I've done in this tub here, where they're actually strong enough to defend themselves. And it looks like this chestnut mushroom, it might actually be defending itself against that thing. So I probably should take this tub and throw it out and disinfect it and all that stuff. And I definitely probably shouldn't even be opening it in here. But because this chestnut mushroom actually seems to have stopped that thing, I think for the sake of experimentation, I'm just gonna let it continue doing what it does. But yeah, that's really what I wanted to drive across today, was just how chilling out is the way to go. That's what the mushrooms taught me. That's another one of the lessons. The mushroom has taught me so many lessons, but the one that's been the most rewarding, at least for today, it's been looking back and saying, man, yeah, I have learned to kind of chill out a little bit. And I have learned to just realize that, this is all supposed to be fun.